Okay, so I'm going to have you guys do just show people how to use their new Basys II boards. What we're going to do is create a schematic design, and then we're going to implement it on the board. So before you get started, you need two things. You need to have Xilinx 14 point something loaded up. I've got 14.5, but I think that any version will be similar enough. And then from Digilant Inc., that's this website here, you can get the Adept software, and that's to program the board. So Digilant is the manufacturer of this board, and Xilinx is the chip that's on it. So what we're going to do is kick the tires on Xilinx, create a schematic, and then program the board. So I'm going to start the Xilinx software. And I got a lot of stuff that comes up here. And I'm going to close it all out. I'm just going to close out, get it down to nothing. So I'm going to create a new project, and I'll call it simple schematic. I'm not going to use any spaces. And I'm going to put it into a new folder, and I'll call it my Xilinx. So I'm going to put that on my desktop. So I select that, make new folder. So now it's going on my desktop and my Xilinx simple schematic. The chip that's on our board is a specific Xilinx chip. They've got probably hundreds of variations of chips. But this guy, if you look with a magnifying glass, you would see that it has this ID. So that's the only thing that you want to change in here. Okay, so there's my schematic, or that's my project. And there's two selections I can simulate or I can implement. And for the time being, I'm going to be in implement mode. Down here, I've got a design tab. That's the most important tab that I'll keep coming back to because it shows me. Create a new schematic. It's a new source, and it's a schematic file. And I'm going to call it So now this is the space in which I'm going to create my schematic. I've got to get back to my design file, and you can see it there. It's a .sch file. And now what I'm going to do is add components to it. And I can do that either using this toolbar here or the symbols tab here, but I'll use this. So the first thing I'm going to do is put some sources in it. And I've got a bunch of libraries here that come with the Xilinx software. And under each one of these, there's sub-selections underneath. So, for instance, under simple logic, I've got AND gates, a whole bunch of different kinds of ANDs, NANDs, NORs, and so on. So let's just, for this time being, let's pick an AND 3. Drop that out here. And now I will zoom in a little bit. Now I need to create, this is just a AND function out here, but now I need to create some sort of input-output capabilities to this. So I select the ports tab, and it knows what the ports are if they're input or output. So when I select this, it immediately creates an input into this, and over here it creates an output. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is rename these because they create these generic names, and I'm going to change the name of the net, and I'll change these to ABC. Oops. Okay, ABC and the Z output. Okay, the next thing I need to do is I've created my schematic. Now I will need to make sure that each of those I/O features talks to a specific thing on the board. So I want, for instance, this A to be connected to a specific push button or switch on here, and they're labeled. So what I'm going to need to do is create what's called a UCF file, and I can get that from the Digilant website. Or I already have one loaded on with my computer, so what I'm going to do is find that file somewhere in some other stuff I was doing. Okay, and I'm going to copy and paste into my current project. Made it. Basys II board. Now before I get going, so I put this in the, my simple schematic folder. And so here it is. So if I double click on it, it's going to open up in a text editor. And I'm going to edit it before I save it. So what I'm going to do is just keep this one unchanged, and I'm going to save this one as my and3 or something. And it's .ucf. And now I'm going to only keep these pins that I'm going to use. So I'm going to use, let's say I want to use LED7, and that would correspond to this LED over here. That's going to be my output. So I'm going to delete all of those. And remember from my schematic, my output is called Z, and I just changed in there. And everything else I don't need except for these 3 switches. So this will be my A, this will be my B, and this will be my C. Save it. And there's my AND3. Now I'm going to go back to my design. I'm going to select this, right click, and I'm going to add a source, not create a new source. It's just going to add an existing source. And I can't remember where I put it. Oh, there it is. It's in here. not in here. So let me get my and 3 and put it into my Xilinx. That's the project I'm working from. Okay, there's my and 3, and that's what I just created. And now when I select this, it's not there. There it is. Let's see. I'm going to put it in here. My and 3. Okay, so now when I do this, I should be able to add that. There it is. And you'll see that it comes under in the hierarchy. It's underneath the top level design. And I could have edited in the in Xilinx environment. Okay, so now I'm ready to synthesize the design. So I've assigned a pin using the UCF file. So now I'm going to select this. Again, I'm under implementation, and under synthesize, right-click, run it. Before I do that, I'm going to save everything. All right, now run. I got the green check. That means everything's good. So the next thing that I want to do is implement the design. Down here, I'm going to do the same thing. Right-click, run the implementation. This is creating files that can be used to program the chip. And now before I generate a programming file, I'm down to the point where I'm going to create an actual file that can be downloaded to the board. What I'm going to do is right-click it and check my properties here, startup options, and if you'll notice here, the clock source is an onboard clock source, and I want to change that to a programmable clock source, the JTAG. Okay, so that's the only thing I changed. Now I'm going to run that. And that's green. And when I did that, I created what's called a bit file. I created this file right here. And this can be actually be used to program the board, but it programs it through the adept, Digilant adept. So if I've installed adept, that was one of the first things I needed to do. It's under Digilant adept, and it's this triangle. And what I'm going to do is program this guy right here. And I'm going to go find that bit file. This is the one that I was working with. Under my Xilinx. And there's my bit. And now when I program, before I do this, I want to make sure that my board is in the PC state and that it's on. So there's a little LED that indicates that it's on. So if it isn't in the PC state, what you want to do is turn it off, move the header over so it's on the PC, turn it back on again, and then you're ready to program. All right. So now you don't need this. Now you can go right to your board, and you should see these three buttons, the way I programmed it anyway, act as inputs to an AND gate, such that this light only goes on when these three are all high. And that's the way it works.